Most people believe air conditioning is what made homes comfortable. That idea sounds reasonable at first. We grow up assuming modern cooling systems solved a problem older generations simply had to endure. We imagine that before air conditioning, people just accepted uncomfortable summers because they had no better choice. But that is not what actually happened. For generations, Appalachian families lived through long, humid mountain summers without central air, without electric fans running day and night, and without monthly utility bills climbing higher every year. And somehow, many of those homes stayed cooler than a surprising number of modern houses do today. That was not luck. It was not because summers were somehow easier back then. And it certainly was not because people simply tolerated discomfort better. Those homes stayed comfortable because the builders understood something modern construction has largely forgotten. They understood how a house should work with nature instead of constantly fighting against it. Now, think about the average modern home. When summer heat arrives, the first response is mechanical. Lower the thermostat, turn on the system, close every window, seal everything shut, then pay the electric bill and hope the machine keeps running. But that approach does not actually solve heat. It only forces temporary control over it. Older Appalachian builders approached the problem differently. They understood that comfort starts long before a machine is ever installed. It begins with the way a home is positioned, how air moves through it, where sunlight strikes it, and how the structure itself responds to heat throughout the day. These builders were not engineers with expensive software. They were practical people who learned through experience. When something worked, they kept it. When it failed, they changed it. And over generations, that process created homes designed to stay naturally cooler, even during the hottest weeks of summer. Once you understand how they did it, you begin to notice why so many modern homes feel hot, stale, and expensive to cool. And the first secret begins with something most builders barely think about anymore: the direction a home faces. Older Appalachian builders understood something many modern builders rarely consider. A home should never be placed carelessly. It should respond to the land around it. Across the mountain counties of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia, homes were often positioned according to wind movement, slope direction, and the natural rhythm of sunlight throughout the day. This was not guesswork. Builders paid attention. They noticed where summer air moved across the ridge. They watched how breezes changed in late afternoon. They studied which sides of the home absorbed the harshest heat. Then they built accordingly. That decision alone changed everything. Because when a home faces the wrong direction, it fights nature. Heat builds faster. Air movement becomes restricted. Walls absorb unnecessary sunlight. Indoor spaces trap stale warmth. But when a home is positioned correctly, it begins working with its environment. The mountain breeze becomes part of the structure itself. This is what made older homes feel alive. You could open a window on one side and feel air move naturally through the entire house. That was no accident. It was intentional airflow design. Today, many homes are placed according to subdivision spacing, driveway alignment, or whatever allows builders to move faster. Comfort becomes something added later through machines. But older mountain builders knew comfort had to begin with placement. And once they had the position right, they focused on the second principle. They designed every opening to guide moving air exactly where it was needed most. This is where Appalachian cooling became remarkably efficient. Cross-ventilation. The principle is simple. Air enters through one opening and exits through another. That movement creates a steady current that plays heat out of the home. while replacing it with fresher, cooler outside air. It sounds basic, but when done properly, it can transform an entire structure. Older mountain homes often placed windows directly opposite one another, not just for light, for flow. As air entered through the shaded side of the home, it traveled across living spaces and carried trapped warmth outward. The result was constant circulation. Rooms stayed fresher. Walls released less stored heat. The entire home felt lighter. This natural draft created what modern systems now try to imitate mechanically. And because mountain evenings cool faster than lowland temperatures, these homes could collect cooler night air and preserve much of that comfort into the next day. Think about that for a moment. No compressor, no electricity, no thermostat, just moving air. This is one of the biggest mistakes modern homes make. They seal everything tightly, then depend entirely on mechanical systems to force circulation. The moment power fails, comfort disappears. Older homes were resilient because their comfort did not depend on machinery. It depended on design. And there was one architectural feature that made this airflow even more effective: the porch. To modernize, the wraparound porch looks charming, traditional, almost decorative. But for Appalachian builders, it served a far more important purpose. It was climate control. Direct summer sunlight is one of the biggest sources of indoor heat gain. When sunlight strikes a wall for hours, that wall absorbs thermal energy. As temperatures rise through the afternoon, the structure slowly radiates that stored heat inward. That is why many modern homes feel hottest late in the day. The walls themselves are releasing heat back into the interior. Older builders solved this by preventing that heat buildup before it started. Deep porches shaded major portions of the home. They blocked direct afternoon sun from striking exterior walls. That simple layer of shade dramatically reduced heat transfer. The difference could be several degrees. And unlike blinds or curtains, exterior shading stops radiant heat before it ever enters the structure. This is far more effective. The porch also created another advantage. It cooled incoming air. As breezes moved through shaded porch spaces, they avoided direct solar heating before entering open windows. That gave homes a cleaner, cooler airflow path. What looked like rustic tradition was actually passive thermal engineering. Modern construction often sacrifices these features because they require more materials and more thoughtful planning. But old builders understood something worth remembering. Comfort is easier to preserve than it is to force. And that same practical thinking shaped what happened inside the home, especially above your head. Look up inside many older Appalachian homes, and you may notice something different. The ceilings often feel higher. That extra height was not about appearance. It was about heat management. Warm air rises. Always. It is one of the simplest laws of indoor climate behavior. The higher the ceiling, the more room there is for rising heat to collect above occupied living space. That means people remain in cooler, lower air while warmth gathers overhead. This natural separation made rooms noticeably more comfortable. It also worked alongside ventilation. As warmer air collected near the ceiling, it could escape through upper openings, drawing cooler replacement air through lower windows. That constant cycle created balance. Modern lower ceiling construction often traps more heat within the living zone itself. Builders save materials and time, but homeowners pay for it later. Then there was another Appalachian advantage modern builders rarely replicate: elevated foundations. Many mountain homes sat slightly above ground. This created shaded underfloor space where air remained cooler due to the Earth's stable thermal mass. As air moved through these lower areas, it entered the structure carrying naturally moderated temperatures.
The home borrowed coolness from the ground itself. No machine could replicate that as efficiently. It was quiet, steady, and completely natural. This is the kind of practical intelligence modern housing slowly abandoned, not because it stopped working, because faster construction became more profitable.
This shift changed everything. As post-war development expanded across America, builders prioritized speed. Homes needed to be constructed quickly, consistently, and at lower immediate cost. Mechanical air conditioning made thoughtful climate design seem unnecessary. Why spend time positioning a home for airflow when a machine can force cool air later? Why build deep torches, elevated foundations, and carefully placed openings when a thermostat can hide poor design? That thinking created a dependence we still live with today. The average homeowner now pays continuously for comfort older builders often achieved naturally. Higher utility bills, repairs, system replacements, emergency breakdowns during the hottest weeks of summer. And all of it traces back to one assumption: that technology can permanently replace intelligent design. But practical builders understood a different truth. The smartest system is often the one requiring the least intervention. This is why old mountain methods still matter. They remind us that homes can be designed to cooperate with their environment. Even if your house is already built, these principles still apply. Open opposing windows. Study natural airflow. Add exterior shade where heat strikes hardest. Encourage cooler, lower-level circulation. Reduce unnecessary heat gain before relying on mechanical correction. Small changes can produce meaningful results. Because these are not outdated tricks. They are timeless principles, and they still work.
The deeper lesson here is not really about air conditioning. It is about how easily practical knowledge disappears. The Appalachian builders who shaped these homes were not chasing trends. They were solving real problems with observation, patience, and experience. They built homes that responded to climate because they had no other option. That necessity created remarkable intelligence, and much of that wisdom remains hidden in plain sight. Walk through an older mountain home, and you can still see it. The orientation, the porch depth, the airflow path, the elevated structure, the careful relationship between shade, wind, and interior comfort. Every detail tells a story of builders who understood that true efficiency begins with design. Modern systems may offer convenience, but convenience often comes at the cost of dependence. Older Appalachian homes remind us there is another way, a quieter way, a simpler way, a way built on understanding instead of constant correction. And if this kind of forgotten mountain knowledge interests you, subscribe to the Ridge Method. Because in the next video, we are uncovering one of the most overlooked systems in Appalachian construction. The hidden floor ventilation method builders use to pull naturally cooled air upward through the home. Once you understand how that worked, you may never look at old wooden floors the same way again.